diving. Hope comes and stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Raw Recovery with Dion Miller. Today is Labor Day, and just like any other day, we need to work on our recovery. I certainly drank on Labor Day, and so we need to work on our recovery on these days. In fact, I think sometimes when it comes to holidays, it might be a little bit more important to maybe focus on basics. And keep yourself comfortable, not put yourself in situations that are dangerous. Today, I have Robert Peasley. We call him Peasley. I met Peasley last November. Gosh, and it seems like I met everybody last November. And I was actually going in, and you guys have heard this story before. I decided to take a recovery coach class to get out of the house and start working on getting out of my anxiety. And that's why I took the class, because I knew it would be a safe place for me. And Robert was our trainer, Peasley, it's his name. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna sit down, talk with Peasley about his story, and get on with our Labor Day here. Hey, Peasley, how have you been, man? It's good to see you.
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for having me on your podcast. It's always a big blessing to be able to get out there and share stories, and really, it's about sharing that experience of strength and hope, and showing, within the community, showing one addict that another addict or alcoholic can recover, and that it is possible. So
exactly. And you were sharing. Oh, I think we got a little bit of a lag there. I apologize, guys. You were sharing your story yesterday too, out in the park.
Saturday.
Okay.
Yep.
And how did that look?
I was speaking at a sober living home.
Okay.
Oh, it was good. It was for a sober living home. I came and spoke to their clients, and just kind of same thing. Just talked about my experience. For me, I typically focus on a little bit of what it used to be like. I don't think that all the nitty-gritty details are necessarily important, but just enough to give an overview of kind of the chaos that my life was at one point. And then I focus on kind of what happened in my life that caused my mindset to change, telling me that I need to do something different. And then the biggest focus is on what am I doing today? What does my recovery look like today?
Fantastic. Yeah, certainly. And, we really only tell the first part of our stories to qualify what it is that we're going through now. And we need to people need to know where we came from. So where did you grow up at, Peasley?
So I'm Colorado native, born and raised in the Littleton, Lakewood, kind of metro area.
Okay.
So went to Bear Creek High School, and so that's just where I grew up. I've been here my whole life.
Okay. Littleton, yeah. I went to Heritage High School, so I didn't know you were that close. You're a little bit younger than me, though. So I just saw today they closed Heritage down due to coronavirus. So we'll see. It looks like a jail. So. So you grew up. How was high school and everything for you? I guess I'm trying to get to where did your drinking career start?
For me, it wasn't until a little bit later in life.
Okay.
I would say that my addictive behaviors started at a very young age.
All right.
My first experience was, gosh, I can't remember how old I was, but probably 7 or 8. And
okay.
I went to King Soopers and I stole my first pack of bubble gum.
Wow. Okay.
So as
that's
innocent
a start.
as that seemed,
that's a start of a behavior. Certainly is stealing. Yes, it is.
And so that right there just shows that, the drugs and the alcohol, those weren't the problems of what got me to where I was at one point. It was other issues. It was the mindset, and so that started very early on. Throughout high school, I drank a little bit here and there, but really didn't get too much into it until after high school. The
Okay.
behaviors were definitely there during high school. I mean, just very rebellious type, ditching classes, not doing my homework and wanting to go do anything else other than school.
Yeah.
So again, like my childhood growing up, the addictive behaviors, the mindsets were always there. There was always these underlying issues that were there, but I didn't necessarily recognize in the time. Out of high school, I went into the workforce. I kind of had this mentality of like, oh, I don't need college. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
just go straight in the workforce and start making a bunch of money. And so I went to work as a mechanic at an automotive dealership, and met some of the other guys there in the shop and kind of befriended them. And one of those guys, well, actually two of the guys that worked there, they were roommates, lived together. So we kind of turned their house into the party mecca for every
Okay.
weekend. So that's kind of
Mecca.
where everyone would just so that was our spot. It was a safe spot. We could all go there, we could drink, we could party, we could crash on the couches or the floors.
Yeah.
But even with knowing the safety of knowing we could stay there, crash out, whatever, that still wasn't enough for me, because I still was invincible. That's what my
Yeah.
mind told me. And so I would still drink and then drive home. And many times I would wake up next morning, not even remember driving
Wow.
home.
Wow.
Picked up my first DUI in 2009.
Okay.
And that was after a couple of years of just, doing that repeatedly and thinking I can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it did catch up to me.
Yeah.
I also in 2000, let's see, that would have been 2000. I think in 2007, I picked up my first charge of distribution and
Okay.
intent to distribute and manufacturing of marijuana.
Okay.
So that was kind of like my first legal thing. Got put on probation, did everything by the books. Did all the probation, did all the UA tests, did everything by the books. As soon as I was off paper, kind of was like, all right, let's go out. Like, I have freedom, do whatever I want. And that kind of led
Yeah.
to more rebellious behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
which then eventually led to the DUI in 2009.
Okay.
Same thing, probation, do everything by the books, be completely compliant with the court systems, get off probation early, get the interlock out of my car early. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
I got off this stuff early. Like, I can go back at it.
You made yourself like the Boy Scout. No wonder you could go back and, because every time somebody put you in a situation to be good, you did great, man. But as soon as you were the Boy Scouts, I just want people to notice how good we alcoholics are good at manipulating. That is perfect. Wow.
Very, very much so, and it was to my demise, really, because of the fact that I knew how to play the system. I knew how
Yeah.
to do exactly what I needed to do. But that also told me, and that told the little addict in the back of my mind that what I'm doing isn't wrong, that I can always get out of it. I can always
Yep.
get away with it,
Mm-hmm.
that the consequences weren't enough. And so, same thing, DUI. And then after I got off papers for the DUI, at this point, my addiction had kind of escalated. It had transitioned into more substances, harder substances. At this point, I was now on top of the drinking. I was using cocaine and pain pills. It started with,
Wow.
and then eventually the pain pills actually transitioned into heroin,
Yep.
so then I was doing all of that, and
Wow.
that eventually led me in 2011. So I
Fast.
kind of had this pattern of like every 2 years. So it's like, get in
Yeah.
trouble, do 2 years of probation, get clean, or to get off paper, get in trouble. And for about 6 years, I was never off of paper for more than about 6 months at a
Wow.
time.
Okay.
And so, about 2011, got caught up with charges in
Mm-hmm.
possession of Schedule II narcotics. And so at that point, this is where I started to think, okay, maybe I should change. Maybe
Okay.
I should do something differently. But I still wasn't ready. I just started thinking about it.
Okay.
at this point, after getting those charges, family members, friends, loved ones started telling me like, you need to get help.
Yep.
Because for a while I got away with all this, and family and friends never really knew what was going on.
Sure. Yeah.
I was able to hide it pretty well. You know, that I suspect that they knew something was going on, but they couldn't pinpoint what it was
Yeah.
because I'm good at that manipulation and lying and
Mhm.
hiding. So at this point, it had all been put out on the table. Through a series of multiple events, friends and family caught on to exactly what I was doing. So I finally kind of put it out on the table and kind of was like, yes, this is what I'm doing.
Uh-huh.
So they were all suggesting I needed help, that I needed to seek treatment, and so I did. But when I did this in mid kind of like fall 2011, I was doing it because they wanted me to, or because they thought
Yeah.
I needed to. So put myself into an inpatient treatment center.
Okay.
I lasted 63 days in that treatment center. In that time, I also met a girl there, and
Uh
so rehab relationships, highly recommended. No, actually not really. It didn't end well at all.
No, it didn't.
We met, we fell in quote unquote rehab love, and we
Oh.
we moved out. Well, I actually got kicked out of the rehab because I broke too many rules, which at the
Yeah.
time I was like, I took an apple out of the kitchen. Like, you're going to write me up for that?
Yep.
Looking back on it now, like it was a rule, and I did
And now you
break it.
now you see why it didn't have to do with the apple.
Exactly. So after I got kicked out, I relapsed. I lived in my car for 4 days, relapsed, and then I ended up driving back down to the rehab, packed all her stuff in my car, and we went and got an apartment together.
Oh.
Straight out of rehab. So
Yeah.
that lasted 3 months until I was pretty much back at full speed,
Mhm.
running and doing my thing. And then she kicked me out of the apartment, and I ended up paying a lot of money actually because they wouldn't take me off the lease because she didn't make enough money.
Yep.
So the only way for me to get off the lease was I paid a bunch of money to get my name off the lease.
Yep.
And then 3 months after that, so then at the 6 month point, she relapsed too. So it was very toxic, very unhealthy for both of us. Neither
Yep.
one of us was in a position to be there. So then that kind of led to me, so at this point I had done the one inpatient treatment, and then at this point I went on to do an outpatient program,
Okay.
to see if potentially outpatient would help. And this time my family was involved, so they were going to therapy sessions with me.
Okay.
We were doing group counseling with families, and so now because it was all on the table, I had a larger support system around me.
Correct.
But I still at this time wasn't quite ready to make any change. So a year and a half goes by, and now we're coming in 2013, and my addiction had heavily progressed. Where no job, no car, no
Yep.
money, no house. Family kicked me out of the house.
Nope.
Because they didn't feel safe having me in their home.
Yeah. Correct.
Friends would let me bounce around on their couches, one night at a time at best.
Yeah.
So it just became very, very stressful. And I remember, so kind of what happened, like this is where the what happened piece comes in, is that
Okay.
like in the big book, they talk about these aha moments and these
Yeah.
burning bush moments. And for me, like, I was still in active addiction, but I had this moment where I remember vividly. It was a Sunday morning, and I was with a buddy of mine who I used with daily.
Okay.
And I remember having a conversation with him, and I'm like, is what we're doing okay?
Yeah.
And at the time, he just kind of shrugged it, like, oh, is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's me. I was like, how can a person be content? Because now I wasn't using to live. I was literally living to use.
Correct.
And so I thought to myself, I'm like, how can somebody be okay with this?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just getting high to have fun anymore. I'm not just drinking to have fun anymore. I'm literally doing it to survive day to
Live.
day.
Yeah.
And I finally reached this point where I'm like, I am exhausted. I am tired. This is literally my lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I made a decision in that moment where I started making phone calls. Because I knew I couldn't call my family for help unless I had a plan in place. My family, specifically my dad, he's the kind of person that he will go above and beyond and do anything to help you. but you have to
gotta
have the
help
plan.
yourself. Yep.
So I called these treatment centers. I finally found a bed at a treatment center. They said, well, we have
Wow.
an opening on Thursday, but we want you to call us every single day in case something opens up sooner.
Yes.
So call dad up, I'm like, Dad, I got this place. I found it. Here's what it would cost to get me in the door. Here's when I can go in. And so basically, you know, I, and this is too where like my addiction has such a greater impact on
Okay.
more than just myself, because
Yeah.
here I had a secured place, I had a safe place to go, but it was about 4 days out that I
That's
could
a
go there.
long time. Yeah.
um, my dad had to take time off of work. He took a week off of work because he didn't trust me. He
Yeah.
didn't trust me out on the streets, and he certainly didn't trust me leaving
And
me in his
at
house.
home. Yep.
So he had to take time a week off of work and kind of quasi work from home so that he could
Okay.
keep his eyes on me 24/7 from that Sunday until that Thursday when I had a bed.
Great idea.
And so so his agreement was he would put up the money to get me in the door, but that wasn't the full cost of the treatment. Anything that was left over after that, I had to figure out how to pay.
Okay.
So he got me in the door, basically dropped me off, and said, "Good luck."
Yeah.
And that finally was what I needed, because that was that end of the line kind of, that tough love kind of
Yeah.
help, instead of like, okay, we'll let you stay here, but we're going to keep an eye on you, or you have to check in with us daily, or whatever the case
Mm-hmm.
may be. It was finally like, okay, here's the front door to the treatment center. Now, good luck with it.
Good luck. I love
Um,
you, but I love you from over here. Yeah.
exactly. And
It
and I
hurts, but we need it.
I did. I absolutely needed that, because I finally was like, this. It started this process. I didn't
Yeah.
recognize it right away, but it started this process of, oh wow, my family's like done with me. Like
Yeah.
they don't know what to do with me anymore. So I went into treatment, and I finally went in there and I said, I'm going to do 30 days, because it was a 30-day program, and I said, I'm committed to the full 30 days. I'm here for it. Obviously, my ways aren't working. So what ended up happening was I only did 21 days, and the reason
Okay.
for that is my counselor suggested that.
Okay.
And even though I fought him on it, and he goes, "Oh, you know what? You're right. You're right." He's like, "You're still in control. You know what you're doing. So go ahead and do the 30 days." And I was like, "Oh man, he's calling me out." And
Yep. Sure
and
is.
he goes, "Here's what I'm going to tell you, and you can do with it what you want." He goes, "The money, he's like, your cash pay, so the amount of money you're going to spend for one additional week here, you could put towards 3 months in sober living." He goes,
Yeah.
"I think you're ready for sober living, but you do
Mm-hmm.
you." And so I like, I had to like still pretend like I was in control, and like, and whatnot.
Sure.
And finally I was like, you know what? I had to break that ego, because it was my ego telling me that, like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm here for 30 days. And, one of the things he said to me, he goes, "But isn't that why you're here in the first place, is because you keep listening to yourself?"
Yep. Yeah. What a great counselor.
So, oh, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He did a lot for me. And,
Yeah.
so what happened was, so I was like, okay, you're right. So I called a few sober livings, did a couple tours, and
Okay.
finally found a sober living that I felt comfortable with. And I landed my feet there after 21 days. And
Okay.
that very first night in sober living, I was in a brand new house that I
Yeah.
didn't know. I was around
Scary.
people I didn't know. And I'll tell you what, in 3 years, that's the best night of sleep I've had for the last 3 years.
Really? Wow.
Um,
That's
and
awesome.
I chalk that up to, treatment center. I was still coming off the drugs and alcohol. I was still
Okay.
drawing. I was still very sick for those first
Sure.
couple of weeks and things. Obviously, before I went into treatment, I was, bouncing from couch to couch and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And what happened was that first night in sober living, I finally felt like I was back out in the community, but I was in a place where I was finally surrounded by people who might understand me, and that I was
Yeah.
comfortable.
Yeah. You felt safe.
I did.
Yeah. And I'm noticing something here too, that even though you were going through all of that stuff every 2 years that was happening, it gave you the knowledge that you needed so that when you decided that day with your friend, you knew what you needed to do. And that is really cool. I call that ruining somebody's drinking career.
Mine was
That's
definitely
awesome.
ruined. So, yeah. So from that point on, I finally went in with this mentality that, I'm done driving this boat, because Obviously my ways just kept ending me up back in the same places around the same people doing the same things. And so I went into sober living. I signed this contract that said, you have a curfew, you have to do a chore and all
Uh-huh.
these things. And there was even like in the contract, there was even the word rule was in there multiple times. And I looked at that and what I did was I changed my mindset. I said, instead
Mm-hmm.
of reading that as the word rule, I'm going to read that as the word tool.
Yeah.
So these are tools to live, not rules to live.
Nice.
Because I no longer knew how to function as a member of the community. I didn't know how to live a civilized life.
Yeah.
All I knew how to do was get up and figure out my hustle to get my drink and drug.
Hmm.
Um, so with that mentality, I went into it and I just said, you know what, I'm here. Like this is my life right now. Why fight the process rather
Yeah.
than I can embrace it and run with it?
Yep.
And so that it helped me get through that. And I ended up spending 26 months living in sober living.
Wow. Two
And
years.
six months into sober living or into living there, I was about 6 months sober. The sober living I was in, they came to me and they recruited me. They wanted me to come work for them. They were a fairly new company and they were growing and expanding, and they
Okay.
offered me a job.
Wow.
And I was beyond myself. I didn't know what to do. Like I'm a
Sure.
mechanic, auto mechanic by trade. I've done a lot of other trades, but I'd always fall back on mechanicking because I had the tools, I had the skills, I had the knowledge. So
Mm-hmm.
mechanicking was kind of like a drug for me in the sense that I could always run back to it when I felt
Yeah.
scared. Um, and so at the time, I was working in a mechanic shop, and when they approached me, and I had to kind of at the time I had to talk to my sponsor, I talked to my family, I talked to my
Yeah.
friends, I weighed out the options. And when I told my boss at the shop that I was gonna probably be leaving, and he knew I was in sober living. In fact, a couple other guys from my sober living house all worked at the same shop.
Yeah.
He was very familiar with it. So I went to him and I said, well, here's the thing, my
Awesome.
sober living offered me a job. And like the next day he calls me in his office and he puts this piece of paper on the table, and I was like, what's this? And he's like, just look at it.
Yeah.
He offered me a very healthy salary,
Yeah.
basically, and offered to make me assistant general manager of the shop.
Wow.
And this was to keep me there. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty cool. And I went
That
back to
feels
sober living.
nice.
It was. So I went back to the owners of the sober living and I said, so my boss just offered me this. And their response was, do we want you to come work for us and be part of our program? Absolutely. But do we want you to do what's going to be better for you and what you believe more in? We
Mm-hmm.
want that more. And I
Yep.
was like, well, that doesn't help me. I was like, you're supposed to tell me. And so I waited out and I got to thinking, I'm like, I'm 6 months sober. What I'm being offered for as an AGM and the amount of money, that's the highest amount of money I've ever been offered for any job in my life at that point.
Okay.
And I realized that absolutely scared me.
Yeah.
I don't,
Sure
to
did.
me, it felt uncomfortable to make that kind of money that
Yep.
early in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew how thrifty I was in acquiring money and acquiring things. So to just have money, I'd be like,
Yeah.
also going stepping outside of my comfort zone and doing something.
Exactly.
I can admire a good challenge,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what this new job opportunity was. And so I decided to turn down the AGM position, and I went
Okay.
straight to sober living, having no idea. And this is where growing up, my friends always referred to me as like the Dr. Phil of our friend group.
Okay. I can
I just
see
thought,
that.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I just always had this passion for helping people, but the
Uh-huh.
difference between when I was younger growing up and now is that when I was younger and growing up, I was great about helping other people, but I never helped myself.
Yeah.
I always put myself on the back burner at the expense of helping all my friends and other people and helping them through their troubles. So now I'm in a position. So when I got offered this position for the sober living, I felt like I was in a place where I had done some work on myself. I had built some more solid foundation under my own feet, and now I was in a position to continue helping myself and also maybe
Mm-hmm.
contribute to helping someone else
Yep.
simultaneously.
Wow.
And so I loved it. I immediately fell in love with this industry and working in this field. It's just something, you know, even as a mechanic, I love turning wrenches. I love working on
Yeah.
cars. There's something about it that still just feels like that clock punching 9 to 5
Yeah.
job.
That mentality.
Um, when I started working in this field, it became a passion. Like I could put in a 10, 14 hour day, six
Mhm.
days a week, and I still felt accomplished. And yes, by the end of the week, I was exhausted. I was tired.
Sure.
I was ready to hit the sack, but I still felt accomplished, and I didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
burnt out from it. And so I kind of started to realize that this is where I need to be. I need to be in this field. So I was blessed with the opportunity to work with them and be their program manager for a little over 2 years. And then at which point I decided I wanted a little bit more. So I stepped away and went to work for a treatment center
Okay.
because I wanted to pursue my addiction counseling certifications.
Wow. Okay.
So this opened up a new life lesson, which, mind you, at this point, I'm now pushing 3 years sober.
Okay.
When I went to work for this treatment center, and I learned a big lesson there. I worked for them for just about a year, and I went there with the intention to, they even had an incentive program where they would pay for the addiction certifications, and then
Okay.
commit so much time to them and whatnot. So they had this incentive program. Well, 3 months into working there, they were growing, and they created some new management roles, and they came to me about taking on one of these new management roles, where essentially I was going to be the manager of the entire behavioral health tech department. I had
Wow.
16 employees that I was directly responsible for,
Okay.
and of course, my mind said, "Oh, promotion, big raise, sign me up,
Yeah.
let's take it." Um, that year I worked for them, I didn't take a single addiction counseling class.
Okay.
Um, so what I had learned from that was having a sponsor, working through the steps, and doing these things to contribute to my recovery. It kind of helped me see all this because it's not like, for me, it wasn't like, okay, I got through the steps and I'm fixed.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process.
It
So
is.
I've done the steps 2.5 times, and I say that because that halftime I got fired by my sponsor because I became complacent.
Okay.
So it just shows that just getting sober doesn't take away all those things.
Correct.
I hit
Yeah.
this period in my recovery and in my life and in my career where I felt comfortable. I felt like everything was on a good track, so I felt like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't need to keep doing the work. I mean, I was, there was still things I was doing, but I just wasn't working with a sponsor.
Yeah, it was fairly
And
lighthearted, probably.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so he was like, well, here's the thing. He goes, I got other guys that want me to sponsor them, and they're willing to put in the work. And he's like,
Yep.
you're sitting on it.
Yep.
And I was like, so that kind of opened my eyes. And so it was really neat because I took this promotion, I took the raise, I took on this new role at this treatment center.
Okay.
And then a few months later, I started questioning myself about it. I'm like, I'm not happy. Like, I'm making pretty good money. I'm
Uh-huh.
comfortable. Like, I got a roof over my head. I got a car. I got friends. Like, I'm doing well in my life, but why am I not happy?
Yeah.
So I had to do some work around myself again. So now here at this point, I'm about 4 years sober at this point, and
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm questioning myself. Like, I'm doing all the things. Why am I not happy? Why do I not feel satisfied? And I learned in that experience that one of the things that I'm really good at, but it's also a character defect,
Mm-hmm.
is I'm good at climbing those corporate ladders. I'm good
Okay.
at getting to the top. I'm good at getting what I want. Let's put it that way.
Quickly.
Quickly. And
Yep.
by doing that, I put myself on the back burner. I didn't do what I went there to
Okay.
do
Yeah.
because I saw money, I saw opportunity, I saw being able to climb that ladder. And so I made a decision, and I reached out to. I had a good friend who owned the treatment center, and known him for a few years. And I was like, "Hey, you got anything available?" And he goes, "All I have is the support staff."
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
I was like, "Cool. When can I come down and interview?" So I remember the gentleman who was interviewing me was going through my resume and everything, and he goes, "Program manager of sober living, BHT department manager of a treatment center." He's like, "Why do you want to come
Why
here
do
and
you
just
want
be?"
this? Yep.
He's like, "Why do you want to? This is the bottom of the totem pole." He's like, "Why are you stepping backwards?" My response was, "I'm not stepping backwards. I'm stepping to the side." And by
Yep.
that, I mean, I'm stepping to the side of myself, and I'm getting out of
Mm.
my own way. I
Yep.
said, I went to that other treatment center to work on my addiction counseling, and I took a promotion really early on, and I put it all on the back burner. I said, so I'm here to do this so I can get out of my own way and let my own
Yep.
goals catch back up to me.
Mm-hmm.
And his jaw just kind of drops,
Smart.
and he looks at me and he's like, I don't think I've ever heard a better answer for that. And
Yep.
he goes, that's awesome. So I did. So I went to work for that treatment center. I worked as a support staff for about a year.
Okay.
And then um, and then in that year I completed both my addiction counseling level 1 and level 2,
Yep.
and then I also got introduced to the recovery coaching thing. And so I went and took the training, and I
Okay.
realized right off the bat, I'm like, this is me. Like,
Yeah.
this is even more so than a counselor. I said coaching, like, this is what I love doing.
Yep.
Oh, despite having paid all the money, taken all the money for the CAT classes, taken all those classes, and done all that, I made a decision not to register with the state as a registered counselor,
Wow.
because for me,
Okay.
the coaching aligned more with my values.
Okay.
Now, the reason I knew this was, through working with the sponsor, and for me
Mm-hmm.
too. Like, so at a certain point, like, I started out in the 12 steps. Like I said, I've done them like 2.5 times.
Uh-huh.
But then the thing is then I realized I needed more. So I started seeking other avenues to complement my recovery. And it wasn't
Yep.
about replacing the 12 steps. It wasn't about
Correct.
replacing sober living. It was all about how can I layer,
Mm-hmm.
stack, I have a single cheeseburger right now. How do I get that into like a triple stacker? Um, and I just want to put more. This opened my eyes to a lot more, and then the coaching really opened my eyes to this all pathway thing. And it's really about how much can we layer on. And so it was pretty cool that I did that, because I realized that coaching is where I wanted to be, or that was
Mm-hmm.
more like how I wanted to operate. So I still, at that point, I think I had 2 classes left to take for the CAC level 2. And I said to myself, I said, well, I've already started and committed. I'm still going to finish the classes and get
Yeah.
everything in line, because maybe down the road I'll want to do the counseling, and then all I have to do is go back and take the test and apply for the license. Why give up now? Because that's what I did in my addiction. I would fall short and give up on things, all the time.
Okay.
And so I made that commitment, because for me, it wasn't a commitment for anybody else. I wasn't committing to anybody. I was committing to me.
Yeah.
And that's where I started to learn my self-worth. In
Correct.
in working with a sponsor, I worked with a recovery coach for a little while. Like, I had a coach for a little while, and then I've had 3 different 12-step sponsors. And when working with all these people and getting connected to this community, I started to realize where my actual values were, because I'd done that work around myself,
Yeah.
going to the meetings daily. I mean, early in my recovery, I think I did 137 meetings or something, I don't know, 130 something meetings
Yeah.
in like 110 days.
Uh-huh.
So there was days I was doubling up and things, and it's because these were, it was told to me, like, do 90 meetings in 90 days, get a sponsor, get a sponsee, just keep doing these things. And so I took all these suggestions, and by doing all that work, I started to recognize these things. And so as I started to realize where I wanted to be, I started recognizing my goals. Okay, I want to do this. I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up racing motocross,
Okay.
and enduros. Like, I grew up racing dirt bikes, so I have this. I'm big adrenaline guy. Like, I love the adrenaline. I love the rush,
Okay.
and I've also had this like competitive nature. So, like, it's always about like how quickly can I get to things, and
Yeah.
kind of like that lesson I learned at that other treatment center. I raced through it. So now I'm at a point where I've learned to slow my roll. In fact,
Yeah.
I even turned down opportunities. I turned down other promotions, and it was in recognition of, and I need to make sure that I'm staying in alignment with my values.
Yeah. I'm gonna
So,
and Peasley, I'm just gonna jump in real quick. Um, Turn off your video. And then when you do that, go ahead and continue. And then the sound will be a little bit better. There we go.
I kind of lost you through all that. All I heard was sound would be better.
Pause your video. All right, a little bit of technical difficulty there. All right, Peasley, go ahead. Thank you, guys.
I don't know where it's gotta love that technology, But
Yeah,
hey, in today's world, we adapt and we overcome, right?
that's it. That's life on life's terms. What could I do about it? Nothing.
Exactly.
So
Nothing. You just make do with what you got. So,
that's it.
But yeah, so really what happened like in all of this is through all these experiences, one of the biggest things that I've learned is that I am a constant work in progress.
Uh-huh.
Um, no matter how stable I feel my recovery is, there's always more I can do to support that recovery. And
Mm-hmm.
that's important for me to recognize and remember because for me, that little addict and alcoholic in the back of my mind is just waiting for me to be weak. Like he's back there lifting weights, just
Mm-hmm.
waiting me for to have that moment of weakness before he just,
Snap.
jumps in unannounced.
Yep.
So, and so yeah, it's just been great, and one of the biggest things that I have in my life today is that I have the gift of choice.
Yep.
When when I was in my active addiction, technically, yes, I had the choice to, I was choosing to do what I was doing, but my mind had convinced me that I didn't have the choice, that I had to
Mm-hmm.
wake up, I had to get that drink, I had to get that drug. The addiction was controlling my life. And so today, with a clear head, with an amazing network of support, of people for support around me,
Mm-hmm.
with the community that I've built and become part of, I have that gift of choice, and I
Yeah.
say it's a gift because I don't believe that it's not a right for me to have that power of choice, but it's a privilege. Like I've earned it, I've worked for it, and that's why it's a gift. I've put in the work to get to
Mm-hmm.
that point.
That's
Um, and
fantastic.
it's afforded me, my recovery's afforded me many opportunities. In the last 2 years, I've become a recovery coach trainer. I've also
Uh-huh.
become a recovery coach supervisor, and and so I've done all these different things. It allowed me to start my own business. It gave
Uh-huh.
me afforded me the opportunity to do that, and all of these things. I stayed within this community and this industry, and I love it because I joke with people all the time, and in a typical, or what society would consider a standard 9 to 5 office job,
Yeah.
you know typically you're not there laughing and having a great time with your coworkers. You're like,
Yeah.
it's all about 9 o'clock, it's business, and it's business until 5 o'clock.
That's right.
um, I feel like in this industry I get to be more of myself. I get to be
Mm-hmm.
more genuine.
Yep.
I'm not showing up in a suit and tie and be pretending to be somebody that I'm really not just for a paycheck.
Yeah.
I feel like I got to just be me and show up. And I kind of view it as the work that I'm doing today is that if I can say or do or contribute towards something even remotely helping one person for one more day, then I've done my part.
Yep.
Because I can't, just like nobody could fix me, like I can't fix anyone, I can't solve their problems, but I can hope that I'm contributing towards them finding that direction,
Yeah.
pointing them in the right direction.
Yeah. Setting themselves up to succeed, instead of setting ourselves up to fail. So, but it sounds like, with all that, it sounds like you found a nice balance in there, of it. Well, it sounds like you learned a big lesson not to rush through everything, because you're one of those guys. Yeah, as alcoholics, we tend to strive pretty quickly. Once we get into recovery, we get our minds back. We can strive. We're actually very, very smart people, and once we're doing the right things, we can be highly successful. But you hit a point in there, and I kind of feel that just like as you're growing up, we finally get to a point in our lives where we stop blaming our parents for who we are. Same thing in the program. We get to a point where we realize that the 12 steps are awesome, but there's more. There's so much more. There's different ways of path to recovery. I'm an AAer for life. I'm probably going to hit a noon meeting today, but AA is not the only way. Um, and for us to say that it is I think would be pretty selfish. You know, there are different routes to recovery. Speaking of which, we're going to do a little plugging now. Peasley runs route to recovery sober living. That was my very good leeway, and it was lucky. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your sober living?
Yeah, thanks, Dion. And I love that segue. That was well played.
Thanks.
I dig that. Yeah, so as I mentioned a little bit ago, my recovery and things I've done has afforded me these opportunities, and one of which was ever since I worked for the sober living that I was living in, I found this passion there because for me, like treatment was great. It was this bubble that I needed, but sober living when I lived in sober living for 2 years, that was finally like, okay, here's the world. You're free to go do your thing, but like we're
Yeah.
still going to hold you accountable for your actions.
Yep.
And that is where I really grew up because I had to go get a job. I had to learn to start paying my own rent again, and I had to save up for a car, and I really had to grow up there. And I just know what it did for me, and I knew that I wanted to be able to provide that opportunity for others at some point. And for a while I didn't do much on it because that was part of like going and getting my addiction counseling certifications, getting my recovery coach certifications. I
Uh-huh.
wanted to I wanted to develop more self-education for myself before jumping into starting a business.
Okay.
Because I wanted to make sure that I had more education for myself so that I could create a more all-encompassing program.
Okay.
Is That was my goal to do.
Fantastic.
And so luckily, so I was working for that second treatment center for 2 years. After I was doing the support staff, I did case management for them for about a year. And then June of last year, I stepped away from them. And July 1st, I opened the doors to Route to Recovery Sober Living.
Right
We're
on.
located in Lakewood, Colorado, near the Belmar shopping area.
Hmm.
So we are an all pathway sober living, and what that means to us is that we don't require you to be working a 12-step program specifically. We don't require
Okay.
you attend 12-step specific meetings.
Okay.
We do, however, we do require that you are working a program. So
Yes.
you have to be able to demonstrate to us that you are attending recovery meetings, whatever that looks like for you,
Okay.
that you are working with some form of a guide. So that
Okay.
might be a sponsor if you're in the 12 steps, a recovery coach if you're
Uh-huh.
doing, all recovery or celebrate or something, a spiritual mentor that,
Okay.
like would, depending on if that's more your direction, if you want to lean harder towards faith or, the spiritual side of things, as long as you
Sure.
have somebody who's that spiritual mentor for you that's helping guide you. We kind of view it as it's our job to uh, educate the individuals on all the different pathways and programs, and then
Yep.
support them in the ones that they choose.
Yep. And I think that is so
We do require doing.
lag, guys.
Go
Sorry
ahead.
about that. I was just saying it's neat because Colorado is really becoming. Yeah, we got lag. People, you guys will have to deal with it. It's all right. If you don't like it, write a 4-step. Um, it's important that there's all these different ways because we are different. We're unique, and what might be comfortable for me might be uncomfortable for somebody else, and that person deserves the respect and the time and the knowledge, no matter what they decide to do.
Agreed, Dion. That's extremely well said, man. I really appreciate that because it's especially the coaching. When I got in the coaching lane, it really opened my eyes to all these things. Like I feel like I've always been a pretty open-minded person.
Sure.
When I originally took the training for the recovery coaching, I realized I was not nearly as open-minded as I thought I was,
Agreed.
and that was great because so it opened my eyes to more. And so I really wanted to create this sober living that I wasn't here to tell you what kind of meetings to go to or how to work your program. I
Hmm.
was here to I want to be here to support you and tailor it to the individual. And
Yeah.
so we do require the 90 and 90, and then we
Sure.
require 4 meetings a week after that. We've got a curfew. Each person has a chore to do each day. We do a deep clean once a month. And we try to engage. This summer it's been a little more difficult because of COVID
Uh-huh.
and the health concerns and things, but we try to engage with other sober livings as often as possible. Last
Certainly.
year we partnered with a couple sober livings and did Christmas party with them. We In
Yeah.
January, several sober living owners all got together and we collectively the entire show to a sober comedian who came through Denver, and then we just dispersed the tickets amongst all of our clients. And
Yeah.
you know, because we really believe in that it's not just about get up, go to work, go to a meeting, talk to your sponsor or your recovery coach,
Correct.
come home, go to bed, and repeat. You know, it's not, recovery isn't just about recovery, right? It's not just about the specific recovery related things. It's about what makes you tick as an individual.
Yep.
What makes you happy? What can bring you passion and joy? And how can we help you find that?
Yeah. You know, I even work with, you know,
that's kind of our mentality is
there's that when not I was lagging, and I was just saying, you know, it's, you know, I have guys that, you know, want to golf, so, you know, I help them find other golf people. But I think you brought up something really important, and this is something that I don't know that people exactly realize. Our sober livings in Colorado are not in competition. And even on my podcast here, I had what I would consider my competition on my show last week. I'm going on his show. This is a we thing. And the moment we start division and work against each other is the moment we'll go downhill. Okay? This is, if we're doing this, this is a we program. Okay. So there is no competition amongst sober living. Trust me, there's plenty of people. There's plenty of clients. So.
Absolutely, I agree, Dion.
So fantastic. Well, you go ahead. This is your show.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you know, so it's just, those are kind of some of the things that we do because it opens more doors, it opens more opportunities, and it shows people that, you know, because I was the kind of person that, like, I'm all in, like I'm always all or nothing, no matter what I'm doing. And so, like, when I was in early recovery, first out of treatment, early in sober living, that's all I did, and it was great. Like, for me, that's what I needed at the time, but also that's not going to be every person's story. And so, you know, that's just said, eventually I got to a point where I needed something more than just my recovery work. I needed other things to support that. And so that's our biggest philosophy, is like, it's our goal just to show things that are possible and, like, things that you could do while being sober. And if you want to partake in them, cool. And if not, cool. Like, you know, maybe the next thing we do will be for you.
Exactly. You know, it's I support Duke Rumley over at Sober AF, and they do a lot of concert stuff. It's not my music, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to support it. There's plenty of people I know it is their music, you know, so that doesn't mean I won't show up, have fun, things like that. So Peasley, thank you so much for coming on, spending your time on Labor Day weekend while everybody else is camping. No, not this weekend, it's too smoky. But and spending your time with us. I think you said something, you know, I wanted to be more than just my story. I wanted to be, you know, we get to a place where we may realize, especially men, is this all I'm going to do with my life? Is this how I'm going to be remembered? As men, it's important for us to have a living legacy. That's kind of instilled in us. So we can utilize that, and we can take it and use it for the good in our life, and show people what our intentions are, and show people and just be the example of what other people would want to be. So that's my Jerry Springer quote for today. Fantastic. So Peasley, you want to give out your phone number before we wrap up?
Yeah, so for Route to Recover Sober Living, I can be contacted or reached at 720-422-0492. You can also check out my website at www.route, R-O-U-T-E, the number 2, recoveryservices.com. And that lists all the different.
Route to Recovery Services.com with a 2.
Yep.
Don't spell out the 2. So it's
Don't spell 2.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you for spending your time with us. I look forward to seeing you around. We got big things coming up in Colorado. There always are, man.
We do.
And for anybody out there listening, if you need a recovery coach, you need help looking for sober living, give Peasley a call. He'll be able to help you out. Thank you, everybody, for being here, taking your time. I hope you stay sober today. I love you guys. You know I do. Peace out and have a day.
Have a good one.